Hiring a salesperson will not fix your growth problem, but it will amplify your leadership gaps. Let's just start right here. MSP owners basically treat sales like hot potato, right? They hate holding it, so they just toss it to somebody else, and then they wonder, why do they keep getting burned? Then they hire a rep and give them no plan. There's no model to follow, no culture to fit into. There's no guidance towards what success or greatness looks like, and then expect them to sell like a $3 million visionary. But if you can't sell your own services with conviction, why would anyone else? This is the unspoken epidemic in MSP land, and it is what we are breaking into on this episode of the MSP Insider Show Whiteboard Edition, where we're breaking down this concept from none other than Robert Gillette, and it comes from our conversation with the previous episode. Trying to outsource identity before you even embodied it, it's like a recipe for burned cash, ghosted leads, and a comp plan carnage. The MSP space is littered with sales corpses, reps that are hired too early, they're trained too little, and they're blamed way too often, right? Let's be honest. Most MSP owners, they want to skip all of the messy part. They want to skip the learning curve, the rejection, the repetitions. So they just outsource it, right? Because they don't want to do it to begin with. Or worse, they copy someone else's script and slap it in and hope for the best. They buy some process that they've never tested, and then they hire a rep and they hand it to them that they can't even train, right? Expecting the results that they haven't even earned.
And then they just crush them under numbers because those are really easy to define and log and catalog and go, did you do your numbers?
But sales isn't just a numbers game, right? It's actually a self-awareness game. And most founders haven't even done the work to build a model worth delegating. If you haven't built a process that someone else can follow, then you are not ready to scale it. Let's pull back the curtain a bit. Every single MSP sales hire actually inherits the founder's operating system, right? And if that operating system is fragmented, right? If it's uncertain, ashamed, inconsistent, insecure, the rep is going to mirror all of that.
If you can't with confidence say, well, I did this and this worked for me, I don't know how you manage that person on a day-to-day basis.
Sales doesn't just reflect your strategy, it reflects the psychology. So if you cringe saying things like, I sell IT services, then your rep is going to feel that, right? If you secretly believe that you're not worth the rates that you're trying to command, your rep is going to communicate that. Your prospect smells it like body odor.
Head trash comes out on the table. It fills the room like body odor if you haven't figured out how to deal with that.
So how do we fix it and where do we begin? What I pulled out of the conversation with Robert Gillette is what I am going to call the strategic pyramid for sales delegation. It's the thing that we abdicate up front and we don't do as owners or as leaders. Now, what the hell is it? I'm going to break it down for you right here. It's a 4-part triangle. Pyramid, if you will. And this is traditionally how we see MSPs approach the art or the science of sales delegation. And so we're going to start here at the bottom. And the very first level, traditionally, is what I like to call the Firehose inputs. Right? So what the hell's that? Well, that's usually someone who just shows up and starts barking things like, well, just make more calls, right? Just pick up the phone and dial. And as you eventually get past the just like the beatings will continue until morale improves part of handing this off, then you might ascend slightly to this next level of the pyramid. The next level of the pyramid is what I like to call the task transfer section, right? So task transfer. And this is where things start to evolve just slightly, right? Well, let me just hire someone to fix this. Is usually the way that this shows up. And fix this is more like, hey, I never took the time to figure it out. So let's just hire someone else to come do it for me because I don't want to spend the time, energy, effort to figure it out, replicate it, build it, model it, demonstrate it as successful, and then bring someone else in to run it. And when we get past that level, the next level, then the next level up is the repeatable motion, right? So after you've actually had someone build it, repeatable motion, right? Now, this, generally speaking, is about as good as MSPs traditionally get at building, growing, and scaling a sales motion. And generally, when you're at this category, it's going to look something like here's what's worked for me, but it's fully documented, which is what allows it to be repeatable, right? Now, when you can break out past that line, you get to ascend to a section that we now call, which is the piece that ultimately Robert was talking about, didn't call it out specifically, but this is ultimately what it is when we're talking about sales, because sales is just about transferring conviction. It's the primary function. And when you get to that other, the top of the pyramid, it's a sales, there we go, sales identity transfer, right? So again, when we're talking about the conviction component, right? That's really what we're talking about, is we're actually getting someone to believe that the identity they can put on, they can self-identify with when they move forward with your services, is a doorway that they don't have to walk back out of. And that is a totally different level of an unlock for sales mastery, but also sales magic, right? Like that's really where like the MRR fairy shows up, and everything is as good as it's ever been, right? Your sales process is not a checklist. It is a mirror of your mindset.
You can't hire a really good musician to come in and just play music. There has to be some kind of a structured plan for them to follow where they're not going to have doubts. Are you sure those are the right notes? It sounds like, no, it's right. You're just playing it wrong.
So let's talk about a couple of things that you absolutely must do before you even think about hiring your first sales rep, right? Before you get to this area, this world, you got to get up the delegation triangle where like we all think that when we make the hire, the problem is solved, but we never even bothered getting above number one, maybe number two, right? Like I hired someone else to just come in and do the work, just do the thing so that I don't want to, because I don't want to, and I don't have to anymore because now you're here to do it. That method of leadership and that method of hiring and sourcing is fundamentally flawed, and it's just going to lead to a, maybe 3 to 6 months, depending on how long you keep them, a horrible situation for both you and the rep. How do you get out of that? How do you prevent it? We really just have to focus on the things that you've got to do first, which is you need to sell yourself first, right? You need to get out there and actually hold and have the conversations with prospects where you're selling yourself to the extent where you're confident and capable, right? You're no longer insecure as an individual in the thing that you're selling, which is you and your business. So first thing you got to do is sell yourself, because that is going to increase the confidence, which then allows you to pave the way to figure out, how do I bring someone else into this path and transfer that confidence to my rep, so my rep is confident in what they sell, because they don't get to wear the owner hat. They don't get to make all of the ad hoc decisions that you do as the owner when they're sitting in that seat across from the prospect, right? So the next thing you need to do is document the path. So documenting the path gives them clarity, gives them guardrails, gives them functionality within their role, so that you can actually design a training motion, right? Training motion. One of these days, I'm going to get some way to hold this iPad so I don't write like a kindergartner, but for today, it's not the case. So designing a training motion, because it's documented and there's confidence and there's structure, now we can train somebody with it and on it. So we don't just hire them and say, go make more calls, right? We're not going to go to the bottom of the pyramid. We're going to bring somebody into a successful system that can be replicated and amplified, right? The last component of this, which is arguably the most crucial when you're talking about building a sales organization, is to build a culture around aligned beliefs. Let's throw that in there. Culture of aligned beliefs. Right? So one of the ways that I used to talk about this in the MSPs that I was running was like, we actually needed to bring in a culture of winning. Now, what the hell is a culture of winning? It's an easy test. Walk into your knock right now, or wherever your support people sit in your building, whatever you happen to call it, and announce that you just signed a new client. And then watch what happens in the room. Does everyone just let out an exhale like they just got a gut punch? Or do they sit up in their seats nice and tall? Do they cheer? Do they want to high five the sales rep? It's a really clear exercise, and I would encourage you to do it, because if you don't have a culture of winning, then all of that's going to be received with animosity, right? That gut punch moment. But if you do have a culture of winning, then everyone's going to rally around the opportunity to serve that net new customer, right? That is what a culture aligned around beliefs is. Now, otherwise, you're literally just throwing that rep into a vacuum and calling it a hire. Now, what do high trust, scalable MSPs do differently? They stop chasing scripts, right? They start codifying that conviction that I talked about. They build messaging that actually feels like them. They can feel themselves saying it in front of a prospect, right? They role play it until the reps internalize it. It needs to be natural. It cannot feel forced, and it cannot feel practiced, and it cannot feel scripted. They do not just track their inputs, but they actually teach the context to deliver the outcome of the conversation, right? And when someone crushes it, they actually pay them. It's like the greatest check to cut that month. Why? Because the company wins too.
And so if you've got so little self-confidence and so much overindulged pride that you can't give the money to a person who you've promised now that they've achieved the thing, that's your own identity crisis you got to go through.
Now, great sales cultures, they are not plug and play. Trust me, I've been there. They are modeled, they are embedded, and they're coached, right? So let's just throw that down here for you. To build a culture that is not plug and play, they need to be modeled. What does greatness look like? What does success look like? Right? It needs to be embedded. It needs to become a part of it. Everyone puts it on, everyone wears it, everyone lives it. And it needs to be coached. You cannot just expect somebody to hear you say what needs to be done once and they're actually going to do it, especially in sales, because it's fluid. So please, before you hire your next rep, before you think, oh, I've solved the problem because I've hired the person, right? I want you to ask yourself, have I modeled what I'm asking them to repeat? Right? If not, then pause that job posting. Pick up the phone. Build the sales motion. Document what actually works. If you personally are not the blueprint, then you can't scale the machine. You can't delegate what you have not lived. You can't outsource what you have not modeled. And you cannot scale what you haven't owned. Sales isn't just a function. Sales is truly a reflection of you, of the company, of the system, of what you've built, of what you've modeled. Until you stop hiding from it, every single rep that you hire is just going to echo those doubts that you haven't actually dealt with. So what I want you to go do is get out there and go model it and then multiply it. That is how MSPs build machines that scale.